Welcome to our info session. My name is Joseph Valencia and I work at the Vincent Price Art Museum. We're located in the S1 building at ELAC. And for the past 3 years, I've coordinated the Smithsonian Undergraduate Internship Program, along with some of our staff and colleagues at the Smithsonian in Washington, D.C. So this program is a very unique program. It's specifically designed for East Los Angeles college students. And the goal is to really expose our students at ELAC to the many different careers and pathways in the field of museum studies, and also learning about the academic side of museum work and how does one, um, take classes or position themselves to work in museums, whether that be art museums, culture museums, science museums. Although we are hosted by a art museum, the Smithsonian has many different kinds of museums and different departments. And so we'll get a chance to dive into all of those different opportunities and departments. So our agenda for today is to conduct an overview of the internship, focusing on each aspect of the program. So there's two aspects of it, one being based in Los Angeles, and the second part being based in Washington, D.C. And so I know right now during COVID-19 and all the things that we're dealing with right now, it's a bit challenging to try to plan, forward, especially into a potential travel opportunity. But this program does take place in the winter intersession, and we're very hopeful that things will be a little different then. And so we're doing our best to still do our outreach and our recruitment to get students to apply and to get them to be selected. And part of why we do it so early, almost 6 months in advance, is because there's a lot of paperwork, both on the ELAC side and the Smithsonian side, that could take some time. And so we want to have as much time as we can to select our students and to work with you and prepare you for this really unique experience. So after that, we'll talk about how to apply, what are the steps, what are the things that you'll need, and what is the eligibility for the program. And then we have a student who participated in the program last year, who's here to share with us some reflections about what that experience was like, where did she work, who did she work with, and you'll have an opportunity to ask questions to both me and Angelica, who worked in the program last year. So with that being said, here's a brief overview of the program. So this program is a full-time winter session internship program. It's designed to prepare future generations of museum professionals and develop new innovative strategies for engaging students early in their studies. Generally speaking, museum programs like this are many times offered at a four-year university for juniors and seniors getting their bachelor's degrees, or they're offered for students getting their master's degrees or even their PhD. So it's very rare that a program like this exists for community college students. So our goal as a museum at ELAC is to use what we have and to connect with partners across this country, in this case, the Smithsonian in Washington, D.C., to get our students through these pipelines, to expose them, to expose all of you to this field. And sometimes we are not necessarily aware of what are the different careers in this field. And so sometimes it really does take that opportunity to get through a program like this and to really be exposed to it, to see, oh, I want to pursue this once I transfer to another school, or even after I get a bachelor's, maybe thinking about graduate school and things like that. This program is not the end of internship work, but just the beginning. And so like I mentioned earlier, we've had 3 cohorts. So it's been 3 years, and we're now recruiting for the 4th year. And over that course of 3 years, we've actually expanded our mission and our goals as it relates to teaching and exposing students to museum studies. And so now at ELAC, we developed a brand new certificate of achievement. It's a museum studies certificate. And this program is a 7-course program. And now this internship is part of this program. So if you participate in the program, you would actually get 3 units of internship credit that applies to this certificate. And the other courses range from art history, studio art, anthropology, and library science to think about and expose you to different aspects of the museum field. And so actually I could do a brief plug here. In the fall, although we'll be on online instruction, we are still projected to have the Introduction to Museum Studies class offered in the fall. So at the end, I have my email. We can talk more, and we can talk more about it on the Zoom if you're interested in taking that class. So what makes this program really unique is the fact that it's offered in collaboration with the Smithsonian. And our specific internship partners include the Smithsonian Latino Center and the Office of Fellowships and Internships over there. And so the director of the Latino Center, Eduardo Diaz, is very excited about working with ELAC students each year. He's very excited. He even though he's the director of a Smithsonian division and an office, he takes time to meet with our students, to get to know them, and to offer resources to them. And here's a quote that he provided, sharing that the goal or aspiration is that upon their return to ELAC or to a four-year university institution, students can transfer, that students will be able to visualize a path for themselves as a future museum professional. So we really hope to expose students to these different fields and also start planning with them, what are the next steps and how can we help you get there? And there's a lot of different careers and areas of museum work. And, I think oftentimes we're familiar with exhibits or events that may happen at museum, right? Different educational aspects, such as curatorial or exhibition planning. But there's also the collection side of things, museums that have collections. How do you manage them? How do you register all the objects? How do you loan them? Or how do you loan an object or get an object from another museum to your museum for an exhibit? How do you prepare them or install them in the galleries? What are some of the science of that part of the work, conservation and restoration, as well as management of archives? Some museums have libraries, and generally museums have institutional archives as well. So what is some of the practices of really the nitty-gritty of preserving and documenting a lot of details of museum work? And then we have the more front-facing aspects of this career, this field of museum studies, specifically working with visitors. So we have visitor engagement, visitor services, educational programs and tours. There's also fundraising. Museums, a lot of times they're nonprofits and they're trying to raise money for their staff or for exhibitions or to work with artists. And so there's a lot of staff that work to raise money as well and develop relationships with people who might want to be invested in a particular museum based off of its interest or its mission. Special events as well as digital media, communications, social media, especially right now during this time of safer at home directives. A lot of museums, you'll notice, are diving into social media. How do we engage our constituencies, our communities, even though we don't have access to our museum? But we still have to be creative in doing the work that we are inspired and driven to do. I recognize that there's actually a lot of different majors that intersect with museum work. And I'm wondering if those of you that are here in the info session wouldn't mind putting your major in the group chat so I can see what majors you have. I just want to see where are you all coming from and what are the tools and perspectives that you're bringing. So we have journalism and cultural anthropology. So thank you, Brianna. Yeah, so you can connect in many different ways to museum work, whether it be the media side of things or diving more into the research aspects of things. We have studio art, anthropology, archaeology, absolutely. So these are all relevant. And music, there's also the cultural side of music, thinking about what the role of music, of performance for different cultures across the world and across space and time, really. But just like any other organization, museums are also, like I just said, an organization. And there's the business and operations side of things, marketing, finance, accounting. These are all aspects that you could potentially be placed into if that's where your interest lies. So it's a very open program, and we really hope to expose students to all of how these different fields intersect in a museum. So there's two parts to this program, like I mentioned. It takes place during the January winter intersession semester or the term. That is a 5-week term. And so it's pretty short turnaround. It's a very intensive time. And so the first week we start at ELAC. In the past, we've started at ELAC, and we do an introduction to all of these different careers like I showed. The history of museum models, both in Europe and the United States, thinking about Latin American models, as well as different types of museums, art, history, natural history, science, engineering, all of these types of different museums. And then we do a lot of site visits. So we visit with different colleagues in Los Angeles, from the Getty to the African American Museum to the Science Museum. Every year it varies based off of staff availability. But the goal is to really expose students to the different people that are working in the city. What is it that they do, and how do they get there? And I think that that is critical to this program, because the second part is working full-time at the Smithsonian with a mentor in their department. And so it's less of going all over the place and more so working in your organization, maybe working on a project or multiple projects, depending on who the mentor is. And that foundation of learning and connecting with people across fields in this museum field is really helpful. I've heard it's been very helpful for students when they're, put to the test of working in that department full time. And so I have a slide for each aspect of it. So here's the workshop that happens in Los Angeles the first week. And like I said, it covers a range of topics, and it's fairly informal. It's an opportunity to meet with a lot of different professionals and actually practice, how do you introduce yourself to a museum worker? How do you say what your major is? How do you say what you're interested in? And how do you get them to really remember you? And also, how do we put ELAC on the map by doing this? So we talk about a lot of different topics as it relates to current trends and issues in museums. And there's a lot of networking behind the scenes visits. So here's some photos down below that you might see, and they're a little small, but you can tell. In the bottom left, this is at the Getty, learning about their grant initiatives. How do they provide money to different museums, to different cultural sites around the world? And how is that part of the work that we do? And how does that generate and support so many different amazing projects in this city, but also around the world? The Getty is very focused on global projects. In the center, you see an image at the Huntington and San Marino. And so this is in their conservation lab. And so this is a group of students that are looking at particular posters. They were pulling them out for an exhibition that the Huntington organized last year for their anniversary. And so they had history of, I think, over 100 years of objects from their collection. And so they had to pull things out and take care of them and check on them to see if they were ready for the exhibition. And here on the right corner, we have an image from the California African American Museum, thinking about tours, also thinking about a culturally specific organization, and how does that impact the way that staff give tours and engage with their constituencies. And the second part, as far as the internship goes itself, like I said, it's full-time work with a mentor in their department. The Office of Internships and Fellowships, they also coordinate different activities, internship development days, meeting with staff members. In recent years, they've even done resume workshops, final presentation workshops. How do you prepare in terms of the professional development side of things? And also, at the end of your experience, we ask that the students present on what their program was like. What was their department like? What did they work on, and what did they learn? And this is a really great opportunity to, yes, practice public speaking, but also how do you share what you did and translate that to a broad range of audiences? And so here's just a list of a number of Smithsonian agencies. You'll notice that they range, like I mentioned, from across disciplines. So you see the National Portrait Gallery, American Art Museum, National Zoo, Smithsonian exhibits. They are the ones that produce all of the the wall graphics, exhibition graphics for a variety of clients, some of them that don't even include Smithsonian. And in the past, we actually had a student work with them, and they worked on graphics for federal agencies like the CIA. And so they have their own historical archives, and they developed or their own exhibit within their offices. So she had to get special clearance to get access to go to the CIA to work with her colleagues and her mentor on the project that they were working on. There's galleries, Air and Space Museum, even engineer students can participate. Archives, libraries, Conservation Institute. The goal of this is to really show the range of opportunities at the Smithsonian, and how part of this program is to really meet with students when we're interviewing and reviewing, the applicants. We talk about what are some of your interests and where do you think you could probably fit. And we take that information and we do our best to place you with the perfect spot, a perfect placement. Here's a photo of our very first cohort that actually met with the secretary of the Smithsonian. So he actually retired. He no longer works there. But at the time, he was the highest ranking federal employee at the Smithsonian, actually appointed by the federal government. And he showed up at the Latino Center for an event and got to meet all of our students. And that's, again, that moment to network, to meet from a cultural leader, a national leader, and also, like I said, put ELAC on the map. And I'm sure our students won't forget him, and he certainly wouldn't forget us. And that was like this really amazing moment to meet informally with someone that is so important to the organization and really to the country. So that was the overview, and I'm going to also do a brief discussion of how do you apply. And so this is all online. So you just go to our website. It's the vincentpriceartmuseum.org. We have a tab called Opportunities, and you'll see that there's a specific Smithsonian Internship button. The deadline is Friday, June 12th. That's in 3 weeks from today. And we did that because we want to be mindful of finals as well as coming up. So maybe after finals, you could, get your bearings together, regroup, and apply to the program. It's a very simple program application. This is what the website looks like. And there's a description, like I talked about, of the details of the program, the class that you take, what are the aspects of it. And at the bottom, you'll see that there's a link. So it's you might miss it, it just says how to apply, and there's a bullet point, but it says 2021 application form, and it's a link, and it takes you to a Google form. So you'll probably need a Google account to sign into this. If you have any trouble with access, feel free to email me and I could send you a version of the form. But basically, it's a very simple process. We want just your basic applicant information, your name, your major, how many units have you taken, when do you intend to transfer, if you do intend to transfer, as well as a resume, unofficial transcripts. And we have 2 prompts that we ask, and these operate in lieu of a cover letter or a personal statement. So we ask 2 questions that give us a chance to learn a little bit more about you. And the first question is, what is it about working in a museum or the museum field that interests you? And this is your opportunity to talk about your interests as well as what you might envision yourself doing in this program. And the second question is related, and it asks, describe your background and your interests and how this internship might help further these interests, further your goals. And so this is your opportunity to talk a little bit more about your background, your studies, how do they come together? If you're working in cultural anthropology or archaeology, how might you see these connections? And also, what are your goals? Do you have a school that you want to transfer to? Is there a professor there that has museum experience or maybe teaches a class about cultural anthropology and museums? Maybe you want to work with them. How can we provide guidance and also a stepping stone for you to get to that position, to that goal? All students must be eligible to work in the United States. And so that's because of the federal aspect of this program. The Smithsonian majority of it is operated by the federal government. And so part of that paperwork I was talking about takes some time because of getting through that federal bureaucracy. So that's just something to be mindful of, that students have to be eligible to work in the US to apply for this program. And you also, like I mentioned, have to be an East Los Angeles College student. And so whether you're transferring or you have a semester left, in the past, sometimes students were transferring, accepted to transfer, and the winter session was their last semester or term at ELAC. And then the spring semester came and they were transferred to another school. So that's happened before, and we know how to navigate that. It's can be a tight transition, a bit tough, but we know how to do it, and we are here to support students that are interested in that, if that applies to them. So I've taken already 30 minutes of your time, so I'm going to pass it off to Angelica Viramontes, who is a 2020 intern. She worked at the Hirshhorn Museum, which is their modern and contemporary art museum, and they have a sculpture garden. And so I invited her just to share really anything that she wanted about her experience, whether that has to do with more details about her placement or maybe the application or interview process, whatever she wanted to share, and we'll have an opportunity to have a Q&A to answer more of your questions. So I'm going to mute myself and go ahead and take it away.
Hi guys, I hope you're having a good day. The Hirshhorn mostly focuses on modern art, so like Mocha or like the Broad. It's around the same subject. And so I was placed in the youth and family programming, and so I got to do project within the museum. And so this was basically working with children from like the ages 0 to like 6 years old. So these were like really small kids, and so we would have to develop different projects for them every week. And then working at the art lab was a very different experience because it was in a studio in the sculpture garden. And so this was more focused on kids who came into the studio for free. You could use anything that was there. And so I worked with their mentors who help these students. And they're all individual artists as well. So I got a little bit of their opinions and their perspectives, which is great. The workshops that I conducted within the museum was mostly for children, and so we would have to create projects for them. I was given a personal project that we were going to use for like this larger event. And it was very different from actually working in the art lab because the art lab focused more on like teenagers who were from the area. And I think the experience was very fulfilling working with either or. And so with the art lab, it was mostly like a studio, and you would work with other artists who were there. And all of these kids were like super talented in their own way. So it was also like I was learning from them most of the time.
Yeah, so I mean, part of what was, I think, really unique, like you mentioned, with your program or with your placement, I should say, is that you basically got to work on two different aspects of museum education and arts or, education programming. And I thought that was super unique that you were able to learn, how are these different divisions or these different teams operating, and how do they come together at the end of the day, to serve different publics at the same museum. Um, and also, your studio arts background, and so that was really unique also to place you with other artists and thinking, how do you translate your skills? I saw in the chat there were some studio art majors in here. you know what is the role of a studio artist or teaching artist in a museum? And I think the answer, what we kind of learned and saw you experience, is there's a lot of different roles and
Yeah.
from a lot of different types of programming and workshops, to developing larger initiatives for the museum.
Yeah, definitely. I was a little hesitant going into this because I mostly focus on studio art. And so going into this, I was thinking like, what am I gonna do? And it played out fine. I think with both sides of this program. While working with these kids, every day I was cutting felt, or I was preparing like these, coloring sheets and doing all these things that, you know, may seem like, oh, it's pretty easy, but over time it's pretty tiring. And they try to see what you could bring into the table and what ideas you may have that could interest these kids. And you have to kind of put yourself in the mentality of these children. And then within the art lab, you're working with these artists. So you're kind of like practicing there on your own. And I was lucky enough to actually paint them like a mural on the side of the studio. And so I thought that was really great.
For those that are listening, she got to create a mural within the art lab and really take leadership on that, designing it. And I think it was even like till your last day, right, that you that you worked on it.
Yeah, it was like I think, last day that I was there, and they're like, we gotta finish this because also the studio was gonna open. And so I was like, okay, I was up there trying to finish it up. But I mean, it was great.
I'm wondering, just for the sake of time, it's been almost a little over 3 months now since you were in DC, and you've gone through a semester, almost a whole semester of school since then. I'm wondering if you have any reflections or insights about what this program did for you, or did it shape any of your thinking about future planning, or did it cement your interest in pursuing more museum opportunity, or could you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, definitely. So this program has like totally shifted where I was going, because originally I wanted to teach in school, and I think that's great, teaching in general. Um, but I feel like I wanted more, and especially I'm like a huge fan of museums as well. I thought that this was a great fit. It's definitely made me a little bit more confident, especially speaking with others in public, and it's really been pushing me to move forward.
Your interest in education and teaching and thinking about that aspect of a future career, but actually then learning how that could translate to a museum. What kind of teaching and education takes place in a museum, and how are they transferable skills? Uh,
Hmm.
and also, how does that bring in your experience as an artist? How do you merge that? How are you able to merge that together in this program? You have a
Yeah.
question that says, did this experience keep you interested in keeping studio arts as a study, or are you shifting your educational goal?
So I'm definitely going to keep studio arts because it's something that I like doing a lot. I think I would either minor in museum studies or vice versa, just because I really like both.
So we have a question that says, I'm part of ELAC's disability program. Is there any limitations that would inhibit me from participating in this awesome opportunity? Thank you for that question. From a program standpoint, I do not think that there's anything that necessarily inhibits students with disabilities or part of the program. Of course, there's different levels, as far as access goes. All the places that we visit are ADA compliant. As far as the specific work, the day-to-day work with the mentor in your department or in their department, it really depends on the type of work. In the past, we have students that worked on research opportunities, and they were pretty much in their research area, their office, their division, and they were fairly uh, you know cited there, and we have other students where their placement was all over the place. We had the one that I mentioned about the student who was in the CIA. That was a lot of moving around, lifting of different supplies and materials, installing things on the walls. So there's different levels of the work as far as physical and mental aspects of the students. So I think we're definitely mindful of that, and that's part of the placement process, is us also thinking, what's a great placement for the student? How can they make the best and do the best that they can in this role? And that also includes talking to the Smithsonian too and hearing from them. So I would say I don't think there are limitations, but it really is more learning about each student who applies and how can we support them. So I think it's open. I don't think it's an upfront limitation by any means. Let's see, is this program open to all 50 states? No, so it's only open to current ELAC students. And so that's what makes this unique, right? Oh, you said, what if an ELAC student is transferring to another state? So it really depends on when the student is transferring, because if you're consistently a student up until the point of the internship, it does not matter if you're transferring. But if you've transferred and then you're reapplying to be an ELAC student, I think that's a bit of a tougher situation because of the eligibility of being a current ELAC student. The other challenge I will say is that sometimes in the past, students have transferred to colleges or universities that do a quarter system. And that is actually really tough to support in this program because many times there is a winter quarter that goes right on top of the same time of this internship. And so if you're an ELAC student, say you're going to transfer to, I don't know, UCLA, we actually had a student who could not participate in the program because of this. Cal States or other semester-based schools are better fit for this program because right when the winter session ends, many times there's a weekend and then that Monday is the beginning of the spring semester. And so that's just something that is a limitation because right now the best time for the Smithsonian to receive ELAC students is the winter, because generally in the summer they have so many internship programs and fellowship programs, professional programs from students. A lot of the times they're graduate students or students that are just graduating with their bachelor's. And so they're booked. And so for right now, it just so happens that we are focused on winter. And so that does come with some limitations. We have a student saying, is there a limit to how many students are accepted into this program or how many students are able to participate? Generally, it's 3 to 4 students are accepted into this program. We have to keep it fairly small group because of the upfront costs of sending students to DC, to housing you, to your stipend that you receive, scholarship. So there's a lot of costs that the museum actually raises money for to support. And so expanding the program actually just doubles those costs. So for now, while the program is still, it's entering its 4th year, we're going to stick to 4 students. Stephanie asks, this program, will it take place at VPAM, meaning we won't be transferred to other museums? So that's a great question because now that we have a museum studies certificate program, students could actually take the internship class in Los Angeles. This is just going to be one aspect of it. Students can choose to take an internship in LA or they can apply and take the internship in DC. So this is actually very new. In the past, it was only DC. But this semester actually was the first semester that students were being placed at different museums. And I think actually because of coronavirus and various limitations, I believe the internships got adjusted because, it was hard for students. I mean, if a lot of museums staff are working from home. So we had students placed at LA County Museum of Art and actually at VPAM as well. So those are opportunities that are available to students who are pursuing classes in the certificate program. I know it's a long way of answering the question, but yes, so there's basically the LA option and the DC option, but the DC option requires a more formal application, this one that we're promoting. Any other questions? So the deadline, like I mentioned, is in 3 weeks. It's on a Friday. The Google form actually closes at midnight or a minute before midnight. So feel free to reach out to me. If you have any questions for Angie, you can send them to me. I'll send them to her. But yes, we hope that you all are still interested in this program and that you're thinking about applying. And, it's been a great program and it's such an amazing opportunity to work with ELAC students in this way. And I hope that you all apply.